Welcome in the AL Recruiting Player Interview, and we have a really special guest tonight. He's fresh off of his commitment to the University of Alabama, Lindale, Texas' own Casey Poe. Casey, we're so glad to have you on the show tonight, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
Well, we got a lot of Alabama fans that follow this account. That's why I reached out to you, and I know a lot of them want to hear from you. And so you're one of those guys that's highly rated. You could win anywhere in the country you wanted to go. So why'd you pick Alabama?
Yeah, so there were a ton of different schools, like you said, that were kind of offering me and building a relationship with me, and those were all great programs. There was never a program where I felt like they didn't have something to offer. There was always something great to offer. So it was a really hard decision to me. But ultimately, when it came to Alabama, I knew that every day that I was going to be sitting in a meeting room or in practice or in a weight room, that I was never going to be the best guy. There'd always going to be somebody that I had to go chase, and I had to go try to get better than to, earn that starting spot. And I think that's something that's really going to help me accomplish my goals. And I think Coach Saban has set up a great culture and a culture that I really want to be a part of. I've been an Alabama fan since I could know what football was. And so it just, everything kind of fell into place. All the numbers clicked. And so it felt like home.
Well, you really confirmed something that a lot of people who followed Alabama recruiting, specifically Nick Saban recruiting for a long time, is that Coach Saban never promises starting jobs. He just
No,
always
sir.
promises you an opportunity to compete, and it seems that he's just continuing to do that.
Absolutely. That's what he does.
Well, I think about one of the things he's talked about is he loves dual sport athletes. And hey, this is not too shabby right here on your Twitter profile that in 2022, you're the Texas shot put state champion. How does that translate to you, just competing and getting better even on the football field?
Yeah, so I think shot put does two great things for football players. That's why I encourage anytime anybody has any questions on how they can get better recruited or really just better at football, I tell them to go straight out to shot put after football's done. And one helps with footwork. There's all sorts of footwork you have to learn, where to land your feet, how to really be controlling your body whenever you're going at a high speed to go to a neutral position to a very powerful position. And it's all different things that are going to help in football. But I think it really helped me in recruiting by letting people see how powerful I can be and really how I'd explode through my hips and throw a 12-pound ball, out up to 58, 59 feet. And I think that coaches see that and they really like just knowing kind of how explosive you can be.
Man, that's incredible. I've never talked shot put on a podcast, but all those reasons are incredible for any offensive lineman that watches this, and I'll send that out. And so, when you got ready to commit, tell the fans a little bit about who you picked up the phone and called when you were ready to let them know that you were committing.
Yeah, so the first person I called was Coach Saban. It was 2 days after my official visit. And me and my parents had gotten the opportunity to kind of talk and to kind of pray and just sit down together and really just think through this decision. And I had a phone call scheduled for 2 days afterwards. And I knew, if I could sit and just kind of be patient with myself and let myself think for those 2 days, and if my heart was still burning to go to Alabama, then that would be the time that I would commit. And so we had the phone call set up, and I knew just instantly as soon as the day hit, I was like, yeah, this is it for me. This is home. And so I picked up the call and I talked to Coach Saban for just a couple of minutes, just kind of chatting and kind of getting, just building a better relationship, just getting to know one another. He was down in West Virginia at a family reunion, I think. And ultimately it came down to it. And he said, so how are you liking the Tide? And I just told him, if you still have that spot open for me, that I'd love to take it. And he said, well, I don't know whether we should be congratulating you or congratulating us. We just got one hell of a player. And that's a phrase I'll never forget.
Well, and from a legend too. I mean, but Casey, I've got one more question, but I'll say this, man, you said something in your answer just now, and we're all about helping people, but on this podcast, we're all about following Christ and spending time in prayer. And that's who we are too. And so my advice to anybody that listens to him, what did he do? He went and prayed about his decision. And I think if we'll spend time and pray about those decisions, the Lord's going to lead us to where we need to be anyway.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Well, again, many fans are familiar with our podcast, but we're all about giving back. And maybe one of the big things that we have is we have a lot of young guys that follow this account, listen to these interviews. And so, you're heading into your senior year, but this process started a long time ago. So any young guys that may be watching or watch at a later date, what's your advice to young kids, young high school freshmen or middle schoolers that are saying, you know what, I'm beginning the recruiting process? What's one piece of advice you would give them if their dream is to play college football?
Wow, there's a lot of advice you can give. Really, when it boils down to it, the couple things I really think helped me was, one, I fell in love with the weight room. Like, that's one thing in my free time. If I had time to spare, or if my thoughts were kind of jumbled, or if I just need to get away for a little bit, I was going to go work out, because that was kind of a place for me where I know I could go pressure myself to get better and be the best. And other than that, it's like you said, be that multi-sport athlete, play as many sports as you can, because every sport connects in one way or another, whether it's footwork, whether it's mental, whether it's hand-eye coordination. There's always something you can gain from another sport. And lastly, build relationships. There is never a time in my recruitment where I tried to burn a bridge or just hung up on a coach because I didn't think I was going somewhere. Every single time I got an email or a piece of mail or something like that, I made sure I read it. I made sure I thanked the coach. I responded to him, because you're never going to know where that coach can be in 3 or 4 years. I could talk to a D3 coach who wanted to recruit me at the beginning of my career, and by the time I'm done, he could be coaching the wide receivers at some NFL organization. He can remember that kid who responded to him where he didn't have to, and that could get me in the door. So that's really the big 3 pieces of advice that I have for anybody that's coming into it.
And that is wise advice beyond your years, man. That's incredible to hear. And I hope everybody that's watching takes note of that. And that will probably end up as a YouTube short and a reel at some point, just to give you an FYI on that, because that was good.
That's great.
But man, we wish you nothing but the best. Anytime in the future, we'd love to have you on, probably continue our conversation just a little bit, but just so thankful that you joined with us tonight, and wish you nothing but the best in your career.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back on.
Absolutely. Well, fans, give Casey a follow. I know you want to follow him. Anybody that has that good of advice at his age, it's just going to get better, right? And so just give him a follow, like, subscribe this video. It really helps us continue to have more interviews with players. But thank y'all so much for listening, and God bless.